Let's start off with the Ashley and Martin medical hair centre turning point. Ashley and Martin treatment can be a big turning point for young men looking to regrow their hair. This time around, we're going to get into the Crusaders attack. So the first couple of weeks, we saw 8 tries from them, but in the last 2 weeks, we've seen 16 tries in 2 weeks. The attack is absolutely humming. Chip, what's changed there?
Their risk versus reward, they are really, and afternoon footy I think plays a part, but they are really looking on their attack to keep the ball alive. If you look at Will Jordan's try, when Saifaloy pops it out the back, it's almost like a no-look flick pass and Will goes on to score. I think that's the example of the Crusaders' attack, is everyone is just in sync with attack at all costs, and it feels like they feel they can score from anywhere. They have a high conversion rate, obviously, once they get in the 22, but it is a little bit more ambitious to what we saw of the 6-time champion Crusaders that once got into the 22 sort of rolled their sleeves up. They do chance their arm. Had a little interaction. I bumped into Wayne Smith on Friday, and it's great to see Wayne. Sorry, where are you? Smithy, great to have you as a fan of the show. Really made me do some proper homework, some real fine-tuning homework this week. But what Smithy said to me is, you guys are obsessed with kicking, which I must admit, when we look back on it, Bryn, we do like to exit, very, very well and quickly via the boot, whether it be a box kick or tactical kicking. But he opened up my thinking, and got to find a middle ground of attack at all costs, is they exited out of their area 100%, but their area turnover rate was at 18. But then when you look at where the errors are, it's actually in between the halfway and the 22. So it's almost like they've got a license to have a real crack in that part of the field. And if you are to turn over there, if you are to get a turnover, it's probably the best place to get a turnover, because naturally teams will look to exit or kick the ball back to you and you can get back into your attacking structure. So they've got to, although their turnover count is high, what Smithy saying that to me has made me think is, don't get so fixated on the turnover, probably get fixated where the turnovers are happening. And where this Crusaders attack, I believe, is being the turning point, not only, I suppose, from last season, but for their season, and to be wary of this mindset, is it works for them because they're actually really disciplined within the areas they're obviously targeting to chance their arm versus not. And I think that's a big difference. Even when they run the ball out of the half for an exit, it's achieved as an exit tick. Do you know what I mean? So they're not always just kicking to exit, but they're making the best of the situation with the options that are presented to them. And yeah, as you've said, like their attack is on fire. And a lot of it is around the collisions as well. Obviously the clean outs, making deep rucks and that speed of ball, but I think they do have a licence, a much more bigger licence in between the 22 and halfway to have a crack in their phase play.
So is Wayne saying that actually exiting from your own half with ball in hand is a far better option than we thought it was?
He's saying it's a far better entertaining option in terms of, there's more opportunities to run with the ball than just resorting to what we see as teams set up for the kick. And I think what he's saying is you can still be active and alive for an attacking opportunity, even if you're set to kick, but where I suppose there's blockers and there's protections and that you're just almost giving the ball back. When teams drop wingers back, some teams still go for the kick exit just because they want a clean exit, but there's actually opportunities, he's saying, if teams still set and paint a picture that they could do both.
Yeah, I think it was just always having a triple threat mindset. I think, if you've kind of fallen into the trap of just wanting to kick in, players aren't animated outside in your attack shape, then it's pretty easy to defend. And then, if you're all kind of engaged, then depending on what the picture is in terms of what's in front of you, you might see some space out wide. And they've shown some good form of the exits, whether they want to box kick off Preston, they want to kick long, or they've got an ability to be able to play to the edge or being able to play through the middle of the field from what they see. So I think with their attack structure, more so in the exit zone, is that they're all available. They're all seeing what's in front of them. And so I think probably last year, it didn't look like they were very clear in terms of how they wanted to exit, or just in general, really, around their phase play strikes. So whether that's Brad Moore coming in or James Marshall having more time in the attack and seeing what's around them, it's a lot better. But I think you just can't underestimate the cattle that's there as well. I think having David Hart-Vili back, we've talked around him a lot, and I've played with him a lot in terms of what he gives in front of you and being able to give confidence to your 9 and 10s or the guys who are in the middle of the field that he's behind that pivot to see where the space is, there's an opportunity. And having Will Jordan back on the edge, that's another form of, I guess, communication, another pair of eyes that are seeing where the space is, whether that's through run, pass or attacking kicks as well. And I actually thought Braden Ennor coming back after a big injury was really good in terms of his decision making, whether it was being able to use his speed running the ball or even his distribution skills. Look, you don't score, I don't know how many tries they scored between the back three, but 9 or 8 tries. And I found the distribution from the second 5 and centre to get that ball to the space was really good on the weekend. So whether they missed that last year and weren't able to get the ball to the edge, but I guess for me, I pause in terms of being able to give them too much credit because when they did play the Chiefs, they weren't, I guess, as crucial, I guess as ruthless as they were the last 2 weeks. So I guess the challenge for them is when they do play a derby game against the Chiefs or the Blues this weekend, which they will find probably a lot more difficult to try and use that attacking, that attacking ability and having that ball in hand of the numbers that we had, 1,000 metres carried. I think they will be challenged a little bit more in that sense with the Blues Blues defence. But all in all, I think the guys that I have touched on that have come back have really helped them to be able to have that triple threat of being able to run, pass, kick. And I guess with what's seen in front of them and the picture that's given to them, they're choosing the right option because they're pretty clear in terms of what they're seeing defensively from other teams.
I think a lot of, you can see their mindset and everything is to get the ball back though. So they had the highest amount of restarts regathered, but they go for it. So potentially going for short ones doesn't necessarily always end in a great position for you as the team, but they back themselves to get that ball back. And I think you've got to credit Sevu Reece and Macca Springer, one, their ability to kick from the edge. So you've actually got trust that we can get to the edge and we know Sevu can go off his right foot. We saw Macca do something absolutely outrageous with his left foot and scored a try from it. But I think that's what we're seeing more of, is they have a lick first and then have that ability to bail out if they're going, because if you do get isolated on those edges, you can get turned over a lot. And so I do think actually the skill set execution of Sevu and Macca was pinpoint, and it was the same the week before. And then just having an understanding that there will be more turnovers when your carry to pass ratio, they're at 67%, so they're passing a lot more. They're the most passes to carry ratio in the competition the last 2 weeks. Against the Chiefs, it wasn't that way, and I do feel like that Reds game has been a big turning point for them, and now they've backed it up. You almost think they'll have a real sense of confidence coming into this derby game, that they know where their strengths are and probably more focused on what they can bring to the encounter, rather than, it just seems like they're very methodical about internally looking at their setup and what they can control versus so much what the opposition can do.
Bryn, another interesting part of the Crusaders attack that was there is like the way that they hold their width that kind of allows the midfield breaks as well. Like we saw Macca Springer, I think, a lot. He is out by the touchline. Even that try where he got the ball late, he was running outside of the touchline before he came in to receive the pass. How vital is that element of the attack, again, to show those options, to create the ability for everyone to do it?
Yeah, 100%. I think, whether you're a winger or you're a loose footer or hooker and you've got someone in that 5 metre line, you've always, as a last defender on that edge, you've got to think about the attacking kick, or, if it's a second pivot that gets that ball, it's a bridge pass. So it kind of opens up the space in terms of that defensive pressure that the team can put on you. So, and then like I said before, when you've got good distribution, 12 and 13, that can get that ball to the space, even if you have your skill set under pressure, you can get that ball there. So, yeah, I just think a lot of those guys, whether it's, Macca Springer, Sevu Reece, or sometimes you see a loose forward that's on the edge, it just seems like they're all in rhythm in terms of where they need to be on the field. And I think last year there was just one thing they didn't get right. There was a lot of uncharacteristic mistakes that they weren't getting right in terms of their face play shape. The clunkiness was a word that we used last year. But I think sometimes when you have the cattle that has come back, and it was probably one thing that we touched on last year, a lot of young men getting opportunities but probably didn't have that experience of what it was to play regularly at the Super Rugby level. Getting those guys that have come back, you can kind of just see how much they miss them in terms of not only the execution, but probably the confidence that they give that group, in terms of the communication that they give, the ability of being able to get the execution right in crucial times under pressure. So, I think it's been a great start for the Crusaders, and like you touched on with Mecca Sprigger being on the edge, it just makes the decision-making for the defensive side a lot harder when you've got guys that are in the 5 metre line, or even the animation, having guys out the back, all in sync, which we've probably seen the last 2 weeks against the Reds and the Force.
But I think, to answer your question, it's actually the work that's done in that midfield that makes the defenders worry about the guy on the edge, because every team, like, it's basically a fine if someone's not in the 5 metre channel in terms of attack structure, well, in New Zealand anyway, to draw the perceived width of attack. But because there's so many moving parts in here, if you're a carry clean side, currently under the speed of the ball and the gain line accuracy, under the sort of the new rules that have had this impact, is you can sort of come up and you can back yourself to get to you can sort of quarter flag it, but when there's so many moving parts, you can't actually back yourself to get right up in that passing channel to either cut that off or the bridge pass, which buys you time to get back. So that's the challenge for the last 2 weeks for the Crusaders, because there's so many moving parts in that middle bit of the field. Defenders aren't getting that line speed to get in that passing channel to spook them, and then that edge is really open up, or they're more worried about the edge, and a Will Jordan or a Dave Havili or a Kemera can really sort of pop out the back, as we saw Richie do so well, and split that sort of edge defender of the forward pods. So I think it's all working into one. You know, like that role will definitely happen for width, but I do think it's all these moving parts that are just making defenders hesitant, and you can't present that, I suppose, that fear factor of line speed at the moment.
Geez, we've talked them up now. That's the Crusaders. They're probably gone this week based off the fact that we've
talked up their attack. They won't be happy with the amount of points they've leaked defensively, but their attack definitely is. Yeah, it's pretty. You can't ignore it.
Yeah, it's pretty sad.
The points are on the board.